it's Gamer Ahmer here. So today I wanted to do a quick review of this pretty interesting game for the NEO GEO. So this, of course, we have the Super Spy. Now this is one of those early titles for the NEO GEO, and it's one of those first-person shooter and fighting games. So today we're going to go ahead and take a closer look at this game. So let's go ahead and check it out. So of course, with the release of the NEO GEO in 1990, this game was actually released in 1990 as well. So here, of course, we have the Super Spy, and this is one of those pretty interesting games that I was pretty excited to find for a great deal. Now, usually you find NEO GEO games for quite an expensive amount, but this game was around $100 or so, and I'd say that it was worth it. Now, I actually have a lot to talk about with this game. So, of course, the main premise of this game, the Super Spy, is to stop the terrorism. So essentially, you are Roy Hart, which is the hero that you control, and he is a martial arts master. So with the controller only having 4 buttons and a joystick, the moves are very simple, and there isn't too many elaborate controls while operating this game. So essentially, you see on screen your character's arms and even his legs. So first you have a basic punch, and you also have a kick. And then you can go ahead and toggle between a couple different weapons. So you have a knife and a gun. Now actually with the gun, you may find that it doesn't hold as much ammunition as you would like it to. So you may find yourself running out sooner rather than later. So usually I stick with the knife, as I feel that that one is pretty effective. Now as you move along and you get used to the controls, you'll notice that you can actually use a right hook and some other options while moving the joystick in certain directions when you punch. So they also do have these secret attacks. So of course you could combine the A and B button to use as defense. So this is a pretty interesting game with its basic moves. Now of course this game takes place in a pretty interesting tower where there's actually a bomb being built by the terrorists who have taken over. So of course the United States is in a panic over these life-threatening actions. So essentially, you navigate through this building, going up elevators and entering various rooms. So your goal is to continue advancing through as much of this tower as possible. Now, as you are advancing through this building, you have to defeat as many terrorists that come into contact with you. So essentially how this game plays is you actually control it with the joystick, and it'll show you if you can go left, right, or forward or backward. So essentially you have to go throughout this game in a predetermined location. So it's not as if you can just run around and go at your own pace. It actually guides you in which way you have to go. And of course, while you're going through these floors and levels, you have to take out these enemies, as you can't bypass these enemies. So of course this game gets pretty repetitive as you continuously go through defeating some of the same enemies. Now it is pretty interesting with this game at first when you start playing, because you will see different style enemies. A lot of them will have different weapons, but it can get quite repetitive when you see some of the same enemies over and over again. And then of course when you get to those boss battles, you'll notice that they are a bit more challenging than the ones that you encountered in the hallway progressing through this tower. So of course this game is very simple. It doesn't have a lot going on in the storyline. It does have some pretty interesting music that's constantly repeated throughout the game. So it will get pretty repetitive as time goes on. Now I didn't continue this game until the end, so I would imagine that there are several hours of gameplay to actually beat this game. But I did play just enough to get used to the controls and the fighting techniques, and enough to actually get used to defeating some of these bosses. So what I tended to do was use the knife for most of the combat in this game, And then of course I would use the gun right away, and then each time you continue, your ammo does increase. And I especially liked when you would be able to pick up the machine gun, as it definitely helped take out a couple more enemies at one time. So that one was pretty interesting. And then I noticed that you did get a couple different weapons throughout the whole pace, so that was pretty interesting as well. But this is just a simplistic game. Now of course you can actually save your progress if you had a memory card for the NEO GEO system, so that would be extremely helpful instead of repeating all of these levels over and over again each time that you played. Of course at the end you will have to defeat a female character, which was pretty interesting to see, as most of them are males. And then of course the last one you have King. Now of course this game was pretty interesting. Now I enjoyed playing it on my NEO GEO system. I definitely see how it was built for an arcade and the NEO GEO system. So this was pretty interesting, as it came before Doom. So this was an early NEO GEO game. Now it did get pretty repetitive as you continuously fight enemies through this building. You use the same moves over and over again. You're punching, you're kicking, using a knife, and using guns. So this was pretty repetitive, and the music was pretty interesting, but it does get repetitive as well. So of course this was an interesting game to play. Now I definitely would recommend it if you could find this game pretty cheap and you just want to go out there and fight as many bosses and enemies as you can. But it does get pretty repetitive. So of course if you're looking for an in-depth storyline, I definitely would not recommend this for that, as this is pretty basic, it's pretty simple, but it is a lot of fun. And of course you can get what you bring to it. So this is definitely an interesting game. Of course I'll have to get a memory card for this NEO GEO system so I can pick up where I left off, as restarting this game over and over again definitely add to the repetitiveness of it. But I think it'd be interesting to try and get to the end of this game and see what else it brings. So of course, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Go ahead and check out my other videos and stay tuned for more.